everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Pro Series podcast. This is episode 62, and it's come at you a little earlier this week due to Thanksgiving, so I hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving. But this episode is with Christian Wilhelm. He is a real estate agent here in Pittsburgh. I wanted to bring him on because I had a direct message that came through probably in the beginning of the year when this podcast came out, and it was how to conquer a fear of being young in a career. I think this person was a designer, but Christian has his own story starting so young in real estate. So we talk about his story, how he conquered that fear. I give a little bit of my insight because I started young in the interior design world. And we go over some other topics that you might find interesting, starting your own business in real estate. But before we start this episode, please make sure you like, subscribe, and review this podcast on wherever you listen to this podcast. And now I hope you enjoy episode 62 with Christian Wilhelm. Thank you so much, Christian, for coming on the Pro Series podcast. Excited to talk to you finally.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I know we've been talking over the years, like on social media and stuff. So it's kind of cool to finally get on a Zoom call and talk on the podcast. And I thought I had someone DM me some topics to talk about, and it was all about being young in your career. I think this person was a designer, but I think when you're working with money with clients, real estate, designer, construction, all that kind of goes into the same field. And I think this is a perfect topic to talk to you about, because I know I was listening to your episode with Eric McKenna on his podcast, that you started young and you were still young in the career, and I wanted to get your advice on it. But off camera, you were kind of talking about how young you did start in real estate that I did not know about. Let everyone know when you started in real estate first before we start in.
Sure. Yeah. So I started in the real estate industry while I was basically fresh out of high school, first year at community college, CCAC, local community college in Oakdale, PA. And was fortunate enough to find a mentor. Things kind of just fell into place. And I was an unlicensed assistant when I was 18 years old. So I was an unlicensed assistant at 18 years old, and I was doing things like driving around paperwork, opening up doors for people, sitting open houses, driving around all over God's green earth, essentially. But in that year, and I talked about it in Eric's podcast as well, that year was such a crucial year for me because I had so much experience and ups and downs, not only being new, but being a young person in the industry. I mean, I literally had people be like, "What do you do?" I'm like, "I'm a real estate agent." And they're like, "No, you're not. You're 18 years old." But, we'll talk about some of the ways that I had to overcome that. And it was an interesting ride, to say the least.
That's insane. I didn't know you were that young. And I mean, I feel like real estate is one of those companies. I have had a lot of real estate agents on here, and they kind of segue from a different career. Like if they're in the corporate world and they want to be an entrepreneur in some way, and they kind of segue into design or a real estate agent. So it's kind of interesting to talk to someone who that was I know it's not your first career path because you've had many jobs. You talk about it in that podcast, but you started mainly as your first career path. So it's kind of cool to hear that. But the main topic of being young in your career, I guess you could take it multiple ways. Customers could treat you differently, but this is coming more from coworkers. And I know you have an experience you would like to share of when you were younger and kind of what something was said to you. I would love to hear that story.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll never forget that day. So it was actually after I got my license, and I was 19 at the time, and I had one of my first closings, and I walked in, ready to go in my suit, and it was in a room full of people, and the closing coordinator, like the title company, they call them, was there. And I walked in, and she looked at me and said, "Who are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm the buyer's agent." She said, "You're a real estate agent?" She said, "Shouldn't you be back in preschool?" And the whole room laughed. And in that moment, I felt really powerless, and I felt very defeated because I wanted to say, you know what, I know that I look young, right? Like I go home and I beat myself up every day about like, am I going to make it in this industry? Am I, I'm the youngest person. I was the youngest person when I joined Howard Hanna in the entire company. They're the third largest real estate company in the United States. So you want to talk about an uphill battle? Like, I was the stat. And when she said that to me, I digested it, and it kind of sent me off on a warpath to be the young, successful guy that's highly respected throughout the industry, which, I definitely am today in Pittsburgh, at least. And, you know, to the young people out there that are watching this or listening to this, you're going to go through that. If you look young, if you are young, people are going to judge you, and you can't control that. It's all talk, it's all words. You have to let that stuff bounce off you. And if you learn to use that and channel it correctly to get energy from it and to say, hey, I'm going to prove you wrong. That was the way that I found to overcome being young in the industry, is just to continuously channel that, and not only channel that, but to own it. So anytime somebody would say something like that to me, I would say, you're right, I am. And look how successful I am. So,
Yeah, that's crazy, because that could have went two ways. It could have went your route and kind of fueled your fire, or completely destroyed you.
yeah.
And you probably would have jumped shift, and you never given real estate the time of day and actually seen how successful you actually have come,
Yep.
just because of that one comment. I think that's, people always say that a lot if they're going to the gym and they see someone that doesn't look stereotypically fit, and they're like, they'll make fun of him, when you should not be making fun of anybody that's trying to do something.
Absolutely
and get the
not.
job done, because you always have to start at zero. So remember where you've come from. And is that something that's driven you to bring on? I know we talked about a little bit, you have a lot of young people on your real estate team. Is that kind of a key reason why you want them on your team? Or do you just magnetize that?
For a couple reasons. So number one, I believe that you get out of the universe what you put into it, right? So giving back is always good. Like, I have been so blessed and have been provided so many opportunities that I don't know where they came from. I'm 28 years old now, and I've experienced, in my own little, like, tiny kingdom, I call it, a very high level of success. And I'm very grateful for that. And I never take it for granted. And one of the ways that, I keep myself in check is by giving back to the community, giving back to, the younger people that are trying to get into the business. Anytime somebody reaches out to me on social media, needs help, needs advice, I give it to them, and a lot of people tell me that, like, I shouldn't do that, but I'm like, no, I definitely should do that. That's one of the reasons why I am where I'm at today. And I feel successful, at least in my own world. But mentorship in real estate totally lacks. Brokers will hire anybody with a pulse because they're independent contractors. There's really not any, now with certain companies, there's definitely overhead per agent. But at the end of the day, we're independent contractors, even though we're kind of like employees. So it's no skin off the broker's back if they don't take the time to teach and to train these people. And I was fortunate enough when I got into the industry to have a group of mentors that, again, I kind of met by chance, that taught me, when you show up to the house, make sure to take your shoes off. Answer people within 5 minutes. If you don't answer your phone, they're going to go somewhere else. How to write an email, how to communicate with people, how to introduce yourself, how to walk into a meeting, how to own a room, all that stuff. And I'm like, people need, like, the young generation, they need to learn this, because people think that being successful in business is being smart, and it is being smart, knowing about your industry and all this other stuff. But some of the things that we teach these younger people on our team, I think it will carry them for the rest of their lives. And I'm just very, very passionate about it. Mm-hmm. And in the digital world that we're in today, and seeing, the young hustlers that are out there, it's just, why not tap into that talent? So that's the other reason as well, is I just do truly think that they're talented and they'll be around for a long time.
Yeah. And I think they're more likely going to listen to you than someone else that, an older generation, not saying anything bad about that. It's just,
they can relate.
They can relate better.
Yep.
So as they're coming in, this is kind of something that kind of just came to my head. And I know I've struggled with this. We're both pretty young and, we went to school. What is something like a key topic or a key tool that you think that we didn't learn in school that could have set us up for more success in any career? And like, I know in design, I went to school for interior design, and they could not. There's no way to teach someone how to do what they're going to do, because you could go into commercial design, you could go into residential design, you could be specialized in kitchen and bath. So you're going through 4 years of school to learn a broad, very, very broad topic and figure out what you're going to do. But something in high school, they don't really teach you the key elements that you need to do to even go into a career right out of high school. What's something that it comes to your mind that you think school should bring in?
I think that's a really good question. And it's kind of a loaded question as well, because there's so many angles to that. Like,
Yeah.
the first thing, obviously, everybody says is, well, I didn't learn how to write a check in school.
Yeah.
And they should teach us those things like finance, knowing about money, I think would be tied with business ethics. So, for example, like, and again, obviously 10 years ago, it was different than today, but like learning about bookkeeping and, getting the right system set up with your accounting and how to track your expenses and using a separate credit card for business. Staying organized in your finances is something that, even though I'm a pretty organized person, I just didn't know how to do it. But if they taught like a quick class on, and maybe they do now, I really don't know, about like, when you own a business, like, here's some of the things that you put into place. Like, my bookkeeper, I swear to God, she is like amazing. She keeps my whole businesses in check. Like, if I didn't have her, I would struggle really, really hard. And again, I just happened to find her by chance through one of my mentors that's actually on my team right now. And that was so important to me from the financial level. So bookkeeping, some of the finance topics, it's hard to teach people about real estate finance until they actually own property and they're exploring. But the other thing that I think should be taught is core business values and business ethics. Because again, when I first got into the industry, I was intimidated because I thought that if I wasn't a real estate expert, nobody was going to want to use me. But I quickly found out that the reason that people were using me was because I was nice to people. I looked them in the eye and I shook their hand. I took my shoes off when I walked through their front door. I responded quickly. I always had a very high sense of urgency with the way that I operated. And I beat that into every person on my team's brain, because in the world that we live in, even 10 years ago, when I first started, it's very fast paced. Everybody wants it now. So, the old quote, like, fake it till you make it. I don't know if I truly believe in that, but maybe a part of it, because the answer is already out there, right? For any question that you have, we have Google, you have resources, we have mentors, we have other brokers from different companies that we can call. But those are some of the things that I think should really be, taught, because it is what helped put me on the path to success. And it is what put me on the path to be educated in the business world, and business and just real estate in general.
Yeah. So for the most part, did you learn that through your mentors, or kind of reading up on your own research and kind of learning it on the way?
So fortunately, I had two very good parents that taught me really great manners, that carried me and will carry me for the rest of my life. And then, yes, I had a group of mentors, and still do, that do you golf at all?
I do not. No.
Do not golf. Okay. So neither do I. So I suck. But I know that you shouldn't walk in front of somebody's putting path. Like, one of the agents on my team, his name is Garrett, and he's actually a state champion golfer. And I remember talking to him about golf when I first was interested in golfing. And I was like, I have to go to a country club and I have to, network with some of these guys. And I'm not good at golf, so I'm nervous. And he was like, well, let me run down with you a couple of these things that you should pay attention to, because this is what's going to impress those guys. But my parents taught me I had a core mannerisms from them. And then moving forward, my mentors really taught me that if you want to be in high level business, you have to do what you're going to say that you're going to do. You have to respond quickly. You have to act fast. You can't give, you always have to give. And the value factor would probably be the biggest topic with all of this. One of the best things that I've learned in my entire life is in any relationship that you have, personal, business, if you're the first, if you focus on bringing that person value, you almost can't lose, because everybody needs help. Everybody, anytime that anybody has a question, there's always a deeper answer. So it was instilled in me very early to become an extremely valuable person, because like, even as a quick example, like I'd be in the office and I'd notice somebody struggling with the computer. It might be like one of the older agents that we worked with. And I'd come over and say, hey, do you mind if I take a look at, what you need help with and I can help you? And they would say, yes. And I'd fix it. And they would say, oh my God, this is amazing. And I've also been struggling with this email. And I'd say, well, I can help you with that too. And did you know that you could also do this? And they'd say, really? And then I became a valuable person to them. Then they started giving me leads. Then they started calling me for questions. Then I was able to call that top producer when I was in a pinch and say, hey, how do you evaluate this piece of property? And they would help me because I've already helped them. So it's kind of like a give take kind of thing, but I've always been a person that just brings people value.
Yeah. So you're definitely against, there's always going to be competition, but you're against competition between realtors. You think there's always room there to help someone out, and because it's going to come back to you at some point.
Yes, totally, totally. And I've done that over my career, and it has helped me in a lot of ways. I think that there's enough business to go around for everybody.
Yeah.
And the greatest part about giving your advice and giving your systems and your tools and all this other stuff, you'll find out that maybe 1% of people actually are going to use it. So I've learned that most of the times that, I offer answers to questions and advice and all this other stuff, it doesn't get used anyway, but I hope it gets used. It just doesn't always work out like that. And then the people that do take it, like I have a couple people in the industry that are not on my team that I've mentored and I've helped. And I love to, see how successful they are. And, I don't know, sometimes I need them and sometimes they need me. And we have like that mutual respect for each other where it's, hey, you've helped me when I really needed it. And I hope to be able to bring that same thing back to you one day. And it's good business. It's just
Absolutely.
Good business. And you can't lose when you operate like that. I truly believe that.
I completely agree. And as you brought up your team's pretty big on social media, and I follow a lot of them, but I don't completely understand the real estate team aspect. Can you explain that?
Sure.
And is it beneficial to the brokerage, or is it just beneficial to the real estate agent?
It's beneficial to everybody. And here's
Okay.
why. So again, our industry, it's hard to manage a lot of people. Like, so the last brokerage that I was at, we had almost 80 agents. And if you think about like the brokerage, so you have the brokerage, and then you have the teams underneath of that umbrella, and then you have the agents underneath, like the team leader or the team principals, as they call us. If you're in a partnership, like I'm in a partnership with Nick McCune. So me and him are the team leaders. And then we have our agents underneath of us or, beside us, but they report to us instead of reporting to our broker of record. If they have a question, if they need somebody to sit down next to them, help them write a contract, we have other managers for that, et cetera, too. But it's a good thing. And I really do think the industry is going to transition to, and Compass is actually already doing it at a very high level, where the brokerage is basically just the broker and then a ton of teams underneath of it. Mm-hmm. But the key is finding a team leader that really, truly cares. Because like when I first got in the industry, I thought that every agent that I brought on was going to save me time. I found out very quickly that every agent that I brought on is basically kind of like an employee. It costs you more time because you have to train, you have to teach, twice the amount of phone calls, which is great. Being busy and all that stuff and helping people is good. But it takes a lot of pressure off of the broker, and it allows each agent and team to kind of collaborate under that license where the broker takes a lot of liability and compliance and other stuff that is really undervalued in our industry, I think.
Mhm.
But it allows them to kind of build their own brand and just have like some freedom with building that brand and kind of being a part of like these little wolf packs that are underneath of the big guy. So
Gotcha.
does that
That's
make sense?
Yeah, it does. It makes sense also to someone starting out because it makes it a less haunting to ask questions and just to build yourself into a career that you're just starting out in. So, and
Yep.
again, full circle, when you're starting young, it's harder to, you're intimidated to ask those questions to someone that's been in the business for years and years. But if someone's closer to you in those smaller teams, it's easier to be successful and get successful faster.
Yep. Yes.
That's awesome. Well, I lastly want to touch on, we touched on mentors, but surrounding yourself with people who are like-minded as you and keep you motivated. That probably goes with your team as well. You want people on your team that are motivated and want kind of think business sense like you. But outside of the business world, is that important to you as well?
Outside of the business world, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's extremely important, right? Because um, when you talk about like core values in life, I think carry you throughout everything, right? So, like, I believe in being very dependable. I believe in accountability. I believe in hard work, family, integrity, all these other things. And if you, I truly believe that you're the average of the five people that you spend your most time around, and your income is the average of the five people that you spend the most time around's income as well. So I know that if I'm around like-minded individuals, I'm more likely to be happier because I'm living within my means, I'm living within my values, and I'm not looked at like I'm a psychopath, right? Like
Yeah.
I like to get up at 4 in the morning. I like to work out at 5 a.m. I like to work, 14, 15 hours a day, and I like to travel, and I like to, get right back to it on Mondays. And I like to read and talk about, the universe and all this other like cool stuff. And if I'm around people that don't really like to do that, like that person in that closing room that said, well, shouldn't you be in preschool? It's like those people can kind of make you feel like I know that this stuff makes me happy and this is how I want to be, but I'm not fitting in here. So yes, like you have to find your den of people that, have those same values that you do, because if you live within your values, that's what's going to make you the happiest and the most successful.
Yeah, I like how you explain that because it's almost like that quote that people say you are what you eat, but you are kind of who you hang around too,
Yep.
which I love that. So I want to finish off on promoting you, where they could find you on social media, where you're a real estate agent at, and how they could contact you.
Yeah. So I am a realtor at Compass. Compass RE. RE is obviously short for real estate. We have a brand new office here in Robinson Township on Steubenville Pike, and we have an office in Moon Township. I do a lot of advertising, posting all of our teams listings, et cetera, on social media. So you could follow me at Wilhelm Real Estate. That's WILHELM Real Estate. Facebook Christian Wilhelm, and then obviously in the video or whatever I can comment and put my phone number and email and stuff. But yeah, that would be great. And anybody out there again that's either looking to buy or just needs a piece of advice about coming into business or the real estate business,
Mhm.
like I said earlier in the podcast, I'm a man of my word and I'm willing to help anybody. So the door's open.
Awesome. Well, Christian, thank you so much for jumping on today. I'm excited to get this out.
All right, man, I appreciate you having me.